Dear friends, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. This is your channel, Gnosis Arizona. Our lesson tonight is titled Cosmic Justice is Real. And tonight, we're going to speak a little bit about the fundamentals of karma. And we're going to speak about how to negotiate karma and explain how is it that this is not a law of punishment. There is a lot of confusion about what karma is. There are many memes out there where people are shown thriving because karma is exercising the actions necessary for those other people to suffer consequences, right? But karma is not cosmic revenge. Karma is all about cosmic accountability. If we were to speak in terms of credit score here on earth so that you can demonstrate your social responsibility, karma is kept track of for you to demonstrate your degree of spiritual accountability and responsibility. Because we're endowed with a significant amount of powers that we can use, but we must use them in ways that are honorable, in ways that are constructive, in ways that are essential and useful to the consciousness. So karma is not cosmic revenge. Karma is all about cosmic accountability. And in terms of the law of karma, the scale of the law of karma never lies. This karma thing is a law that governs all of creation. Karma reconciles every action with its consequence, and it is a law of compensation. It states that you get exactly what you deserve and not a little more or a little less. And this goes for the things that are enjoyable and very useful, and it also goes for those things that are sour and perhaps difficult pills to swallow. The key thing here is that every cause has an effect, and at the same time, every effect becomes on itself a new cause, and this creates an endless chain of circumstances, of conditions that we must learn how to manage. So in terms of karma, we want you to know that karma is not vengeance. Karma is not spiteful. Karma is not ill-intended. I mean, sometimes we are on the receiving end of the decrees of the archons of the law, and it feels kind of harsh. But in reality, this is not about vengeance. It is not about forcing you to suffer. No. The whole purpose of karma is to offer you a shock to the consciousness, is to lead you to a condition where you can deliberately stop and contemplate in deep reflection your conditions, the environment, the circumstances, so that you can help identify within yourself what are those inferior aspects that have brought about these conditions. And so, as a medicine, it helps you move on. But this word karma, I want you to know that it comes from the Sanskrit karma, which means action, it means work, it means deed, it means fate. And that word karma by itself comes from the Avestan, and from the Avestan, that is kerenauiti, which means makes. And in a way, this is what the decree of the law does. It makes you realize and face certain mistakes. But how is it that this law of karma come about? For us, as human beings, as divine beings trapped within the dense substance of these human machines, well, two cosmic laws are responsible for bringing us back twice. Let me explain. The first one is the law of return. The cosmic law of return it states that all things go back to their point of origin. And this is important that we understand it, because with all things coming back to their point of origin, we can understand that the law of return is a mechanical law of nature. So just like the moon goes through its 4 phases and then once again repeats them, just like here on earth, we go through the 4 seasons and then we come once again and repeat them. Just like we go through our path along the orbit of the earth, and once we complete a full orbit, we celebrate our birthday and we come back and repeat it the next year. The same thing happens with the law of return. Once we complete the allowable time that has been dedicated to these bodies, we will leave the body, and eventually the great law is going to bring us back into a new form, into a new vehicle. And once we are back, the moment that we emerge from the womb and take our first breath, when that soul once again enters that human body, that moment, we are already being governed by the law of recurrence. And the law of recurrence states that the things that happened before, when we say before, I want you to think in your past lives, not just your immediate past life, but in your past lives. The things that happened before are going to happen again, together with their consequences, both the good ones and the bad ones. So let's put this in perspective for a second. If we are coming back into a new form every so often, because we will die and eventually we will come back, and by the time that we start living our life, the law of recurrence then is responsible for bringing about all of those previous events that we mismanaged, all of those other circumstances that we ran away from. Then what the universe is doing is literally giving us an opportunity to not only discover what is inferior within each and every one of us and address it and get it eliminated, but also it's giving us an opportunity to demonstrate mastery. And if we can demonstrate mastery, going through the ordeals and challenges of life, that means that we are moving upwards to a new level of being, a new level of spiritual maturity, a new level of spiritual responsibility. And as you can imagine, all of those great masters that have walked the earth before us, and those many others who may be walking amongst us with us completely oblivious of their presence, well, now you can see how those great masters have been able to make use of these laws and use these laws at their favor, at their benefit, demonstrating spiritual maturity and making progress towards higher levels of being. This thing on the law of return, it brings you back. The law of recurrence, reliving the events, brings about the concept of destiny. But with destiny, we also must speak about faith. Samael Aunveor, he says, some people confuse the law of destiny with determinism and fatalism. And I want you to know that destiny has nothing to do with determinism. Destiny has nothing to do with fatalism. And we have to comprehend the difference between these two things, fate and destiny. If we speak of fate, imagine yourself. Let's suppose for a second that you are living life as a completely mechanical human machine. There is no consideration about any external forces. You think that everything is just happening to you. You see yourself as a victim of the circumstances, constantly reacting to everything that's happened. Well, when that happens and we are bound to the law of return and recurrence, well, that fate is tied to karma. But it's tied to karma in a way that is mechanical. And of course, every time things are going to get a little harder, law is seeking to give the consciousness a shock. But if you don't respond, you don't respond. But what about destiny? Destiny emerges when we start walking the path of the revolution of the consciousness. When we realize that our consciousness is just asleep. When we realize that these conditions of us walking, standing up and walking to the living room and suddenly thinking, what was I going to do? Looking for the glasses, we have the glasses here. Looking for the phone, we can't find it, and the phone is in our hand. I mean, when we start realizing that these things are not normal, when we start realizing that we are in a deep state of sleep, at that moment we start awakening. And with those baby steps in awakening, as we start identifying those inferior aspects that exist in our psyche, and we start consciously realizing, this anger is hurting everyone around me. It's hurting me. Maybe we should get rid of it. When we start thinking, these ambitions, they're a constant source of frustration. Maybe we just have to get rid of all of these aggregates of ambition and start focusing on serving. Wow, when we start taking those actions, now we are moving into the elimination of those inferior aspects. And of course, we are giving an opportunity for higher virtues, faculties to be born in us. And if we are on top of that, are serving others, even better. That is the path of the revolution of the consciousness. So destiny emerges when we start awakening, when we start working to eliminate our ego. That is when destiny shows up. And as we know this, let me tell you, because I always use these two words, determinism and fatalism. And now that we use them, I want to tell you what they are. This thing called determinism, we can find it defined as the idea that everything that happens is necessitated by antecedent events and conditions together with the laws of nature. For all practical purposes, this casual determinism is fate. And this is an old idea. This is an old idea. But we don't want to be subjected to this mechanical turning of the wheel of life. I mean, at some point, we must break free from it. So if this is determinism, the concept of fatalism, this is a concept that emerges from those who have been caught in that mechanical series of recurrences, and they're suffering the unmentionable. And because of that suffering, the concept that emerges is this idea that we are powerless to do anything other than what we do. That we are just, like the great masters say, that we are just logs that are being trampled and dragged in the currents of life. No, this is not destiny. Destiny starts manifesting when we seek to awaken the consciousness. And when we do that, and we start realizing that there is this thing called karma, well, karma comes to us as a medicine. And the healing that karma brings stings. But it stings more when you resist. This is a healing that hurts when you fight it. But karma is a medicine. As we experience it, and we make an effort to experience it consciously, it shocks the consciousness into awakening. And that awakening shows you causes, circumstances, conditions, inferior aspects, poor thoughts, inferior emotions, and suddenly you have a degree of comprehension of what is happening that you truly understand what is it that you can do to get out of that. And as you make those internal changes, you grow into higher levels of being. But I'm going to tell you this. If you complain about your karma, if you're protesting against it, if we keep making mistakes, you keep justifying your mistakes. If you keep saying, like Pontius Pilate, it's not my fault, it's always somebody else, things are never going to get better. And we are going to remain stuck into that. But there is a secret here. When this medicine is applied to us, there is an aspect of our being that is a psychological trainer. It walks with us, and it brings to us circumstances, events, and dramas. And those challenges that the psychological trainer brings to us, they empower us. They empower you so that you can start using your creative powers in a way that is of use to the consciousness. In a way that is, so to speak, edifying and dignifying to the consciousness itself. When you understand then that your karma, what your karma is, that helps bring about an increased degree of comprehension of any inferior aspect that you may be contemplating. And so, with that, the next logical step is to invoke forces that are superior to the mind to see those things eliminated. And we tell you, the more we embrace these challenging circumstances around us, the more we can see ourselves reflected in the mirror that is everyone else around us, all those judgments that we issue, the more that we can comprehend what these things are inside of us, the more we can eliminate, the more you can awaken. Suddenly, you're going to find yourself able to unfold in your astral body. Suddenly, you're going to be able to start perceiving with your faculty of telepathy. You're going to be able to start seeing things with the eye of the mind, which is clairvoyance. So this karma is very, very useful. But nobody will argue that each one of us is bearing the weight of what has been our fate. I mean, we all go through very hard and difficult circumstances. But all of these things that happen to us, whether it is economical, financial, whether it is family problems, problems at work, these many conflicts that surround us, they're just a reflection of everything that we have been in the past. This is what the law of recurrence is telling us. In this concept that each one of us bears the weight of our fate. I mean, as we look around, we can see that there are some people who are born in an amazing wealth. Other people, they are born in misery. But if we are born in misery in this life, it is because in past lives, when we had the resources available, we did not know how to use them. It's because we abused them. It's because we hoarded them. We did not share them. We created imbalance. So we create imbalance. We bring misery to others. Now it's time for you to experience that misery so that you can learn from those particular events. I mean, and in terms of bearing the weight of our fate, how many times have we not seen ourselves demanding for ourselves things that we are not willing to give? I mean, it is not uncommon to see people asking for love and compassion. But in the meantime, they're ruthless. They want people to treat them with dignity, with respect, but they get behind the keyboard and they become very abusive. I mean, if we ask for things, if we are constantly demanding for things that we are not willing to give, then these laws of nature are going to come back and they're going to shake and rattle us so that we can awaken. If somebody steals from you in this life, it's because we have stolen before. Somebody hurts us in this life. Well, it is because under those similar causes and conditions in those past lives, we have also hurt others. But in the tree of life, there are two main pillars. And these are two forces that are present and manifest throughout the vastness of creation. And these two forces, these two pillars are mercy and justice. The one thing that you can expect about the law of karma is that karma is always a perfect balance between justice and mercy. When it is all justice, when there is no mercy, if karma were void of mercy and it were only justice, it would be a tyrannic law. And it is impossible for a cosmic law to be tyrannical in nature. It is impossible because the fundamental nature of divinity is goodness. It's good. So justice without mercy is tyranny. And if it were all mercy and no justice at all, then it would be delinquent. Because it would be okay with the wrong things and it would be always forgiving everything. So no. perfect balance between justice and mercy. That tells us that for us to move forward in life with decisive step, we must exercise right action, right thought, and right sentiment. Because when there is right action, right thought, and right sentiment, the great law will exercise those proportions of justice and mercy at the right levels, and our life is going to be consistently prosperous. So as you can see, karma is not a mechanical law. Karma, even though some people may believe it is, karma in reality is not cruel. And one thing that maybe you did not know is that karma is negotiable. Karma can be negotiated for all purposes. Karma is this gift that is the result of the work of our inner being, of our inner savior. And it happens to be facilitated throughout all of the vastness of creation by the forces of the cosmic Crestos. So how do we handle karma? If you want to handle karma successfully, focus on changing the cause. You change the cause, you change the fate. If you want to change the effect, you must modify the cause behind it. What does that mean? That means if you find yourself today without a job, you have two options. You can sit down, complain, or you can make use of those creative forces that exist within you. And you can try to make an effort to be serviceable to others that are suffering the same cause of your disgrace. So if you are hungry, try to make an effort to go and feed others. If you're without a job, try to make an effort to go and help others develop their skills so that they can become prosperous and go serve as well. And as you change the cause, well, the effects will change. What is important here is that we revise our conduct, that we make an effort to see how we are thinking, how we are feeling, how we are behaving, and that we always seek to think, feel, and act in ways that are edifying and dignifying. The great masters say, do all things selflessly and do them without expecting anything in return. And the more you give, the more you will receive, the more the law will be willing to give you back. But if we make the mistake of falling into a corner and just being inundated with feelings of self-pity, well, self-pity was going to keep you poor. And it's going to keep you poor, both karmically and spiritually. We don't want that. People who suffer can be easily convinced that that is the most important thing that is happening, and we tend to only remember our sufferings. No. When that happens, those are actions that are draining our energy. It is like open a faucet and just letting the water run, and that water is all wasted. No, we cannot do that. We need to protect our creative energy. We need to see these circumstances and seek to overcome them in ways that are of service and of benefit to others. If we allow ourselves to waste our creative power, we're going to remain spiritually poor. It is going to be very difficult for us to make change. So this is why the masters, when they are giving us their teaching, they say, serving others will deposit good deeds on your plate of the scale of karma. And when you serve others, expecting nothing in return, it's going to help tilt the scales of karma in your favor. So if we know that, what can be our way out of any suffering? It's very easy. No aggregates. No aggregates in the psychology. No angers, no resentments, no lusts, no greeds, no ambitions, no envies, no laziness, no gluttonies, etc., etc., etc. No aggregates, there's no karma. If we are able to eliminate every single psychological aggregate that exists within our psyche, we would be in perfect balance with the glory and with the universe. We will not even get sick. So no aggregates, no karma. No karma, no suffering. And our intent is to help share with you some things that you can do to help eliminate those aggregates. I mean, what this is telling us, what the great masters are telling us, is that every mistake that you and I make is based on our inferior nature. All of these mistakes, they're based on the ego. Our ego gets hurt, we start making very silly decisions, we start taking very silly actions, saying things that we later regret. No, we cannot allow the ego to continue rampant and doing its thing. No. If we focus on eliminating these defects, when those defects are absent, there's no karma to pay. And then there is happiness. So we must observe ourselves. We must seek to comprehend what is happening in our psyche. These impressions that come to us, what people say, what they do, etc., what that triggers inside each and every one of us. And then, as we observe and we comprehend, we can then move on to eliminate. But the elimination is tricky. Because from our part, on your part, elimination is your responsibility, but elimination from the perspective of applying the willpower to get rid of that inferior nature. Elimination as willpower is our responsibility. I mean, we need to do things to just not keep repeating the same mistakes. But elimination as an action, the action of getting rid of that psychological aggregate that exists, no, that is not an action for us. That happens to be an action of our being. And our divine being, that is made of many different parts. I wish that you can participate with us when we speak later about the different parts of the being. The part of elimination is an action of our being, and it is an action that our being takes through our individual and particular Divine Mother. In the East, they call this eternal feminine principle Kundalini. Likely you have heard that. This is our Divine Mother Kundalini. She is depicted like an electric fire, like an igneous serpent. So this part of our being, this is the one part that has the ability to truly eliminate our defects. Because our mind has no ability. It just cannot deal with that. I mean, our mind will justify our mistakes. It will hide them. It will call them different. It will put a different label on them. It will do many things. But it will never get rid of them. We always need of this power that is superior to the mind. So no aggregates, no karma. No karma, no suffering. And it would be wonderful if we could eliminate all of our defects overnight. That would be amazing. But this is a methodical process. It requires of our effort and dedication. So what can we do in the meantime? Well, we have an option of working with the archons of karma. And Anubis is the archon of karma. He is the primary or the principal officiant in the courts of karma. And in these courts, it's not only Anubis, there is also a collective of 42 judges of the law, and there is also an executioner of the law. You can visit these temples with your astral body. But as we're looking at Anubis here, this is a beautiful image that we find. I believe this is the Nebzeni papyrus or papyri. Excuse my English. In this image, we see the soul of the defunct. That soul of the defunct is the man standing under the scales of the law. Behind that man, there are two women. There is the Divine Mother Isis and her sister. And in the scale of the law that we see Anubis looking at the reading of the scale, there is a container. That container effectively contains the heart of the one who is going through a judgment. When we see that this wisdom is indeed a doctrine of the heart, that all that it seeks is for the betterment of humanity, that all that it seeks is to enable men to transition into higher levels of being so that they can continue serving others. You can see why these teachings are a doctrine of the heart. And so the heart is measured in there, all of the actions. And on the other plate of the scale, there is only one feather. That is known as the ma'at feather. So this is Anubis. And notice that Anubis, just like the judges of karma, they are always wearing their sacred mask whenever they are officiating. This is part of their uniform, just like the fireman wears his uniform, just like the policeman, the doctor, etc. They all wear the uniforms when they are officiating. And this is how you can recognize them. Samael tells us, those who awaken, as we seek to awaken the consciousness, as we are making an effort to awaken here and now, he says, those who awaken, they can travel consciously with their inner bodies outside of their physical form. That means you can unfold in your astral body, and you can examine your book of destiny at the temple of Anubis. You can do this. And you are welcome to visit the temple of Anubis. And when you get there, you can interact with this divine, powerful master. You can invoke of your divine being and ask your being, as you're getting ready to go to sleep, to take you to this temple, to invoke the help and invoke the guidance of this divine being. And Anubis, as a great master of the law, he will help you. Anubis will educate you. As you go to sleep at night, you can ask your being to take you and present itself at the doors of the temples of Anubis, to invoke the presence of this master, to ask for that wisdom that you need, and for you to receive this wisdom. But when you ask for this, I ask you to do this. When you ask for this, I invite you to do this. Ask that you receive that teaching in such a way that when you receive it, that you have the absolute certainty that it is the product of that experience. You have to ask that when that teaching is delivered to you, that it is delivered in such a way that there is no doubt that you comprehend it profoundly and that you can apply it. When you ask for this teaching, you must ask your innermost, allow me to receive this teaching and receive it in such a way that it is never erased from my memory. So that when you wake up in the morning from that astral experience, that teaching is fresh in your mind. That teaching gives you the shock of consciousness that is necessary for you to continue moving into life in a way that is of the greatest benefit to everyone around you, so that you can take those steps into higher levels of being. You can do this. And as you're there, you can negotiate your karma. The thing is that when you're negotiating, you cannot just negotiate with words. This is not a game like, maybe this hasn't happened to you, but we have seen this so often. Some people say, God, if you spare me from this, if you take this away from me, I promise that I will do these great things. And when the problem goes away, they forget. And they break their promise. No. Those are just empty words. No, we don't want to be in that space. We must negotiate with deeds. And every instance, every moment, every action, every word that we have an opportunity to use is an opportunity to accumulate some of that cosmic capital. So as you meditate, as you dedicate some time to close your eyes, relax your body, and reflect profoundly, in that meditation, Concentrate in Anubis. Negotiate. Ask your divine being to let you know what is it that you owe. To give you a signal in your heart, what is it that you can contribute to help pay these karmas? What is it that you want to get rid of? What particular circumstance in your life is so overwhelmingly overbearing right now that you would like to get rid of? That thing that you want to negotiate. Ask your being, what can I do to pay this off? And you will see that there will be a vision. And that vision will always indicate acts of selfless service to people who are suffering more than you. And as you do that, all of those good deeds that you start doing, they start making payments into that karma. But if you negotiate and the law grants you what you asked and you do not pay, the law will demand payment. And it will demand payment, and that payment is going to be in ways that are of tremendous suffering. So if you negotiate, write it down in your Gnostic journal. Don't forget. And as you receive that guidance from the innermost, embrace the principle of spontaneity. You're going to see it. Don't deny it. Don't judge it. Don't say it can't be that. No. Embrace that vision, that message, that communication that fills your heart. Receive it and go put it to action. And start seeing your life turned around. Because the law will pay you, and it will pay you in different ways. It can pay you by sparing you from that suffering that you are wanting to negotiate. But it can also pay you in cosmic capital that you can use to negotiate later. So the more of these great deeds, selfless deeds, not expecting anything in return, the more of that you do, the more cosmic capital you can start accumulating. The more useful you become to all of humanity. And then that capital, you can use it to negotiate later, in this life or in future lives. And that is amazing. And you can also receive payments in terms of dharma. Karma, dharma. Well, dharma are those... all of those things that are so much more pleasant than some of the decrees of the law of karma, right? But you can receive those payments in dharma. For example, think of a car accident. A car accident in which you could end up losing a limb. You could get mutilated, severely hurt. Well, instead of that, the day that is meant to happen because of the law of recurrence, instead of that type of accident, you end up with a little fender bender. That is a big difference. I mean, the law of recurrence brings back an instance in which you fell. For example, you fell to your death in a past life. No. In this life, with that dharma, instead of falling to your death or falling and getting mangled, maybe it's just a trip and fall and you just scrape your elbow or your knee. That is a big difference. So these payments are done in ways that are so intelligent, are done in such magnificent ways. And the key here is that karma is negotiable and you can go and negotiate. So how do we start detecting these events? We spoke a little bit earlier about the law of recurrence. I want you to know that because all things will happen again in this life, just like it happened before, with their consequences, the good ones and the bad ones. Our egos, yours and mine and everyone else, will communicate telepathically. If at the age of 25 years old, you got involved in some fist fight at school, when you were in college or the university, etc., you can expect that at this life, at the same age, we're going to come across the same actors of the drama. And if we are not careful, we're going to end up in the same circumstance. If at the age of 45, you got involved in some kind of a real estate dispute, for example, at this age, at 45, the same thing is going to happen. And all of these defects will communicate telepathically to make sure that they can converge at the right time under the right causes and circumstances for the drama to unfold. We have seen this happen before in ways that are unbelievable. Egos communicating telepathically, one person living outside of the United States, the other one living somewhere in the United States. They will start moving around, finding jobs, interviewing, and eventually coming to work in the same location. This is the way that these things work. But what happens to us is that in our current state, these communications are happening below the detection radar of our intellect. They are taking place and we're not even aware that these communications are happening. So just know, the commitments of the ego will always manifest below our levels of reasoning. So if tomorrow you find yourself in an argument, know that the argument did not come out of nowhere. That argument has already happened before. And rather than seeking to fight to be right, let's make use of those creative energies to observe and comprehend how we are reacting with our thoughts, with our sentiments, with our actions. We invite you to do that because our psychological trainer will use this law and our karmic condition to do its job. And our job, receiving that influence from our psychological trainer, is to be able to demonstrate some degree of mastery. So it's time to break away from our mistakes. The great masters say, we think we are wise, and yet we don't even know that we don't know. We are like the miserable logs dragged around by the currents of existence. So if we know the consequence of the law of recurrence, if we know the role of our psychological trainer, that it will bring about people, forces, energies for us to be able to demonstrate that we can get rid of this stuff and grow spiritually. When we become conscious of these things, suddenly life stops bringing you surprises. You're suddenly standing at the center of the circle of Tao. And you start becoming immune to the swing of the pendulum. And you learn to enjoy the enjoyable moments with gratitude, with happiness, with inner fervor. But you know to enjoy them without becoming fascinated by them. You can go then through difficult circumstances, and sometimes you may shed a tear and cry. But that would be very different than feeling that you're crumbled inside and crying in despair. You move into an internal level of being in which you are at cause over your life, not dragged anymore by the currents of existence. We can use then all of this to help awaken our consciousness. Now, as we're getting ready to just close, let me share with you different types of karma, because there are different types of karma. There is something called individual karma. Individual karma is the debt that you owe, the things that you have done, all of these things that have been accumulating, and the law will demand that you pay back. And again, the payback can be easily done by serving and sacrificing for others, or, well, the law will demand it with suffering. So that individual karma is yours and yours only. But when there are many people who share similar individual karma, then we start seeing something that is known as the karma of the nations. And this is why we see that there are some of us humans who live in areas of the world that are under tremendous duress, under very difficult, harsh circumstances. And others that live in places of the world where the circumstances are a lot easier to go along with. They live in much more opulent conditions. When all of those souls come together with those similar individual karmas, we start seeing then the karma of the nations. But as we start seeing the manifestation of the karmas of the nations, as all those start coming together, we start seeing then what is known as the karma of the worlds. And so, if you are where you are today, it is because of your individual karma and the karma of your nation. If we find ourselves here in this beautiful planet, it is because we are experiencing the karma of this particular world. And of course, because karma is a law that exists from the very first instant of creation. There is a karma that applies also to those great divine masters, to the angels, the archangels, the thrones, the dominions, the devas of nature, etc. And that karma of the gods is called katansya. So there are gods that as they go along, they have varying degrees of perfection, and some of them may make some mistakes that are payable because of the law of katansya, which is the karma of the gods. And as we come together in life with a significant other, when we are with our spouse, those marital ties, they can be either one of three. They can be of a karmic nature. And karmic marriages can be very challenging. They can be very, very difficult. Where there are circumstances of enmity within the couple, there are arguments, there's financial distress, there is lack of understanding, breakages in communication, there's a lot of suffering. Those marriages, they are karmic in nature. What is the best that we can do? It's not rebel against it. It is to follow the doctrine like that Aztec god called Xochipilli, that as the god of music and art and dance and flowers, he invites you, if that is your circumstance, be more loving, be even more kind, embrace them, hug them, tell them that you love them, be of service, and the situations will get fixed. And then there are marital ties, marriages that are of a dharmic nature. Those dharmic marriages, you can notice them. Those are couples that they live in an environment that you can feel, you can perceive the harmony in the home. You can see their belongings, everything seems organized and clean and well presented, and they seem to support each other and they build upon each other's ideas. Those are dharmic marriages. It's beautiful, beautiful relationships. And then there are also cosmic marriages. Those cosmic marriages, those are the ones in which, with the embrace of that super dynamic of love, the couple transforms itself. Together, they make of each other. Her defects become his, and his defects become her, and they work together consciously to see them eliminated. Those are cosmic marriages. But let me show you some ways in which karma is applied. When karmas are given to us, the karma comes scripted in each and every one of us in something that is known as the electropsychic design. At the time of death in the past life, when the angel of death comes and he severs that silver thread of antakarana, which is the thread that connects your body at the level of your heart with your soul. That is why the soul always comes back into the body when you have an astral experience. When the angel of death severs that, the shock that is generated by that energy imprints, perhaps codifies within the soul, this electropsychic design that makes clear the things that you did and you did not do in this particular life. As we come into the next life, that electropsychic design is like, if we say codification, it enables then certain karmas to come in your direction. If we have physical deformities in this life, those physical deformities are the effect of cruelty in our past lives. If in past lives we abused others, we brought pain, whether it's psychological, emotional abuse, well, in this life, those physical deformities will come to take place so that it prevents us from repeating those same mistakes, and that our consciousness can then have the experience of being on the receiving end of charity, of kindness, and of compassion. So physical deformations are the effect of cruelty in past lives. People who have their hands deformed because of arthritis. Well, the electropsychic design allows for an eventual deformation of these extremities, and that is because of the result of physical cruelty and abuse in a past life. If in a past life you used your hands to bring pain and suffering to other people, well, then in this life, the law does this and makes your joints very sensitive so that you never use them to bring harm to anybody else. This is the way that works. People who suffer from epilepsy in this life, they suffer from epilepsy because epilepsy is the karma of being a medium. People who in a past life decided to put aside their free will and their consciousness and allow a disincarnated entity to penetrate their body and assume ownership of their body, even for brief moments. Because that disincarnated entity has a different magnetic imprint than what is in your consciousness. When that comes in, it creates those neural network problems within the brain. That becomes codified in the electropsychic design, and then we see that in a new life, the person who used to be a medium now suffers from the effect of epilepsy. Very interesting. People who are blind, they are blind because of a consequence of excessive lying in a past life. If their constant lies deprive people from seeing the light of the truth, then in this life, their eyes are deprived of the light. And so they cannot perceive. The blindness is a result of lies in a past life. Cancer is the result of fornication in past lives. If we have been given these creative energies within us, and we are expected to use these creative energies to grow in a way that is intelligent, dignifying, but we did not do that. We abused them, and etc. Well, then those energies are going to be out of control in this life. And being out of control, we will see some cells that will receive that, and like what every cancer is, they will start growing in ways that are out of control. And some cancers, well, they will be negotiable as karma. Other cancers will not. People who suffer from tuberculosis, those illnesses of the respiratory tract, that is because of a lack of religion in a past life. When people deliberately deny the existence of these superior divine forces, when they rebel themselves against them, well, in this life, they suffer from these illnesses of the respiratory tract because if we deny the existence of the breath of life, even though we are enjoying it at every moment, right? If we deny the existence of the breath of life, then in this life, every so often, the law stops the flow of the breath of life. And we tell you, there is nothing more desperating than feeling like you are just unable to breathe. So if we deny the existence, the manifestation of the breath of life, then we see these manifestations. So let's start bringing this to an end. Intentions do not pay debt. The great masters of the law are looking for the actions. As a matter of fact, the great masters say that the highway to hell is paved with the cobblestones of good intentions. So good intentions, they don't count. The actions do. So we will pay karma for the wrong that we do. And we will also pay karma for the good that we don't do when we should have done it. This is telling us that it pays to be courageous. Nobody ever regrets being courageous. We must be aware, we must be conscious, and we must be willing to stand up for those who need that help. Every inferior action that we commit is a note that we are signing and that we're going to have to make ourselves ready to pay in our next life. So it would be in our best interest to live life of service, of kindness, of compassion, always seeking the benefit of others and never expecting anything in return. The more we give that way, the more the law will give us back. The archons of karma, they will judge humanity by their definitive and concrete actions, not by their intentions, and we must remember, the results always speak for themselves. If we intervene in family issues and dramas in the community, etc., and things start getting chaotic, we cannot just say it's other people. If we're contributing to that and those results are saying that the thing is not right, that it's not good, that it's creating problems, those results are speaking for themselves. And that's a note that we just signed. So let's open our eyes. The great masters leave us with some axioms to live by. They say, the lion of the law is fought with the scale. That means let's do good deeds so that the scale can tip in our favor. The divine law is a perfect balance between mercy and justice. So let's tip the scales in our favor. Those who have enough capital to pay, they will do well in their business. So if we're not negotiating karma, let's still continue to focus on the good deeds so that we can accumulate that cosmic capital. Because the day will come when we will need it. And when we need it, it's better if we have it. Those who have nothing to pay with, they will pay with pain. And of course, do good deeds so that you may pay your debts. So dear friends, we're here to tell you, you are the scale. Every thought, every act, and every silence has the potential of tipping the scale of justice. Let's make sure that as we move on in life, that we tip it in our favor. So friends, that's what we wanted to share with you. Cosmic justice is real. Hopefully this has been of your enjoyment, it has been useful to you, and we're just very grateful for your kindness and your generosity. Dear friends, thank you so much for being here with us today. May all beings be happy.